You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
Joining us now is Republican Senator Jason Barickman from Bloomington. It's good to have you with us.
Usual.
Part of your district swinging all the way across over into the Champaign area, so a lot of constituents of yours in our viewing area. I want to get your reaction first and foremost to Governor Pritzker's speech. What did you hear in it? What was the substance of that speech you heard, his first budget address on Wednesday?
You know, a lot of spending, a lot of taxes, some borrowing, some gimmicks. He painted it as he called it austere, a very restrained budget. But what you saw is that a lot of people are going to get increases in the amount of money expended by the state. He paints a lot of, over $1 billion in new spending. So I don't think it was that restrained. I think, the reliance on new taxes and new revenues, in some instances, he got the cart before the horse there. Some of those revenues may never come to fruition. They require legislative action. I think we've got a long ways to go to come to a reasonable agreement on a balanced budget approach here.
We're going to dig into some of those in a minute, but perhaps the biggest chunk of all this that really, without it, the budget immediately becomes out of balance by a lot, and that's this $800 million deferred pension payment, or some would even go so far as to say it's similar to a pension holiday. I don't know that really fits the description, but what did you make of that plan? He's basically gambling on down the road that a progressive income tax or more revenue will come, and that then he can reverse this move and step up or increase what the state pays into the pension systems.
Yeah, it's a very risky gamble, right? First of all, we don't know how the graduated income tax proposal will go. That's something he's campaigned on. There's going to be a significant debate this year, probably next year on that, and who knows where that will land. In the meanwhile, what he's proposing in the immediate sense is put less money into the pensions, which saves him, it reduces the payment today, which allows him to spend money elsewhere today. But what that also does is that creates additional liabilities tomorrow. Someone tomorrow is going to have to pay more money into the pension system as a result of his desire to short the payment today. And that, to me, it's a chapter from the playbook we've seen in the past. Governors have tried to short pensions, and in doing so, all they've done is aggravate this unfunded pension liability that's been a big problem for our state.
The Illinois GOP put a name after governor of the past. They said J.B. is the new Blagojevich because he's repeating that same mistake of the past, if you will. Is that helpful to compare him to a guy who's in jail?
Look, what we know is that this is something that Governor Blagojevich attempted to do. I don't think Governor Pritzker is Rod Blagojevich. He was his own character here, right? But what's concerning is that we need to learn lessons from the past. And what we know is that in the past, when the General Assembly, the governor didn't do it alone, it takes the General Assembly to support that action. And when the Illinois legislature supported a prior governor in shorting the pension payment, it created a massive problem in the future. I'd rather learn from that lesson and not repeat it. Governor Pritzker clearly believes this is an idea that's worth revisiting.
Speaking of revisiting, let's revisit last year's budget address. I recall some fiscal hawks, some conservatives pointing to Governor Rauner's budget proposal, saying it was precariously balanced. And everybody got together, they got behind it, they passed it, they said, oh, we think this is balanced. And about a year later, we now know it was $3.2 billion out of balance. It didn't all shake out the way that we thought it might. Governor Pritzker now says his budget proposal will be balanced by about $155 million. So it's a razor thin margin when you look at the $38 billion or so in the big picture there.
But the big picture, Mark,
if I can just set this up, so he says it's $155 million of a surplus. Without $170 million in marijuana revenue, they're in the red. And I wonder, what's your sense of whether or not the state can actually collect $170 million on a marijuana proposal that you suggested or indicated earlier? It's not there yet. It's not legal yet. Is there enough time to count on that money in this budget?
I think this is it's a great example of how ambitious Governor Pritzker is being here. Look, I've said with your viewers before, I think it's inevitable that cannabis will be legalized in Illinois, but we can't get the cart before the horse here. There's an entire process that we have to go through to make sure we get that done right. And for Governor Pritzker today to be banking on I think, $170 million of revenue to balance his budget before any of those details are worked out. I think it's incredibly ambitious. And look, here's why this is important. It's these types of ambitious plans by governors that get our state in the fiscal problems that they're in. When we start spending money prematurely, these are dollars that in no way exist today, and Governor Pritzker already proposes to spend them. When you do that, and you find out after the fact that those dollars never materialize, you've got a hole because this money's already spent, but we didn't bring in the revenue to back it up in the first place.
If he were here, he might say, well, I've said several times in speeches that we should make no small plans and Illinois should think big and that we should take big swings. Sometimes that may mean a swing and a miss. Sometimes it may mean a home run.
Yeah, but the big swings that we've taken too many of is spending money we don't have. That's a giant swing. It's been repeated by, look, both political parties, governors from both parties. We need to learn from those lessons. An austere budget proposal would be reasoned. It would show some moderation. It would be balanced in a manner that reflects to voters and taxpayers that we recognize they feel that they've been overtaxed. They recognize that they want us to do more to control our spending. And what I'm concerned about yesterday or today is that I didn't hear that approach from Governor Pritzker.
To those marijuana licenses, those would right now, according to Governor Pritzker's budget proposal, cost a business $100,000 just to get their foot in the door. Should that be the rate of admission for a company to get in on this pot scramble, to make money on all this? To have a piece of the pot, if I can. But
and this is where I say those are some of the details that we're going to maybe work out this spring.
But where do you stand on that? Is that too high a bar of entry for a business to participate?
Yesterday was the first time I heard Governor Pritzker propose that number. I think we're trying to establish the rules on who should participate. Those rules, I think, should guide us on what the licensing fee should be, because part of the licensing fee pays for the regulatory body to regulate the industry, whether it be Illinois State Police, Department of Ag. So I think it's premature for us to conclude that that's the right number. We should go through the process, the legislative process, to define who should qualify, how they qualify, and then ultimately what the cost for admission is.
I imagine there will be some minority groups, business owners, small business owners who are going to come and quickly say that's a cost far too high, especially from a group who has promised us a lot in this proposal. Would you listen to them? Would you advocate for a smaller licensing fee?
Well, it just depends. Look, the precedent that's established here is that there's licensing fees for medical licenses. And I think we look at that as a guide, but we also recognize the nature of a medical industry and providing a product for people who need it, so says a doctor, is different than what's now pitched as a recreational license. So I'm not sure what the answer is here. That's why this deserves more scrutiny.
All right, Senator Jason Barickman joining us with a bit of a budget recap. Thanks for sticking around and telling us what you thought. All right, we're back in just a moment.